When you're turning 30, I'm sure that you see this with clients, the noise of what society says you should want and what you're supposed to want is very, very, very loud. And of course, I have many clients who want all those things and it just hasn't happened for them. But I also have a lot of clients who don't even know if they want that. Society is telling them you must move to the suburbs and, get married. And sometimes it's like, actually, no, I want to travel. I'm not finished yet. I'm not ready to settle down. I'm not ready for kids.
Welcome back to Quiet the Clock podcast. I'm so incredibly grateful and excited to have our next guest on, Emma, the turning 30 coach. And I blindly reached out to Emma through Instagram because her content completely resonated with me. And I so wish that I had seen your content when I was going through my 30s. I'm now out of that decade, but everything you share on there is so empowering and so impactful and so helpful to normalize, journeys that look different. And that's the intention of this podcast. This is the demographic that we're speaking to, really honoring different paths and helping women shift narratives and embrace where they are, accept where they are, and move away from sort of that societal timeline and pressure. So when I saw your content, I'm like, I'm just going to reach out. I would love to have her voice on here. So I am so incredibly grateful that you've made the time to be here. So welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, when you reached out to me on Instagram, just the name Quiet the Clock, I was like, that is just so aligned with turning 30 as a brand and everything I stand for. And it's especially in the past year, I've been really advocating for egg freezing and fertility and different timelines and different options. So it's really a big pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
I love that you share that title caught your name, because we thought a lot about what to call this podcast. And we thought about all the narratives that I owned as I navigated my 30s and egg freezing, that my clients, as a therapist, I'm a therapist, that my clients owned, that my friends owned. And it's a lot around time and running out of time and feeling behind. So we're really brainstorming a title that felt like it captured all of that. So I appreciate that you said that about the title, because we put a lot of thought into what we wanted to call this. So I mentioned you have amazing, amazing content, and there's so much I want to spend time talking about today. And first, just you and your journeys through your 30s. I know what I love about what you're doing is you're so vulnerable in sharing your journey, how you came to, the Turning 30 coach, podcast, all the things that you're doing. So I'd love for you to share more here with our audience about, your journey and what sort of brought you to the work that you do now.
Of course. So for everyone who doesn't know who I am, I'll intro that. I am a life coach that's dedicated specifically to helping women who are turning 30 or already in their 30s and feel left behind, and all of the topics that you just spoke about now, feeling that they're maybe on a different timeline and things are maybe panning out a little bit differently from what they originally expected. And that was definitely what happened to me. And I think I always start by saying I had my own turning 30 crisis, but I actually think that my journey to this work and to becoming this coach and this thought leader in that area probably started much before that, because I was always very sure that by 30s I would have everything figured out. I think a lot of us think this, in our early 20s, even as back as our late teens, we just presume by the time that we're 30, we're going to have a marriage and mortgage and a settled relationship and a great career and financial stability and all of those things. And I really thought that, I grew up with role models in my community who really displayed that to me. And that's what I thought. But at the same time, I was always very split. Like, one side of me was very ambitious and corporate and wanted to do all things like according to the rules and everything, like in a certain order. And that again was really with that vision of becoming this 30-year-old person who had it all together. But on the other side, I also had that kind of rebellious, more free-spirited, wanted to do different things. So my 20s was definitely a push and pull between those two. And when I actually was around 27, I was a lawyer working in London, and I was like really, focused on that path up until then. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to do something different. I had no idea what that was. And that was the first almost pre-turning 30 crisis that happened. And I then left law. I moved country. Like set up a whole new life, started to have new friends, almost like went back in time a little bit. And then when I actually did turn 30, it was on my 29th birthday. I was like, okay, I kind of made the first big move, but I'm still really not happy where I am. And I definitely got that shock that I think a lot of women get when their 20s do take a twist and turn, and maybe they go through a big breakup, or they decide to move country, or they quit a job, or they travel and do all these amazing things that we're encouraged to do in our 20s. And then all of a sudden 30 comes and we're like, oh my God, but I'm supposed to still have all the other things. So for me, that really happened when I was 29. And that's when I really discovered coaching. I discovered uh, therapy and doing the healing work and working on myself. And listen, it's an ongoing journey. I'm now
Yeah.
36 and it's been 7 years, and I'm sure it's going to continue all of my life, doing this, the work on myself. But that was the start of what kind of took me into this space. And I started off as a career coach, actually, wanting to help people navigate careers if they never found really what they wanted to do, which was the position I was in when I turned 30. And from there, naturally, it led to the turning 30 coach, because so many of my clients were continually saying to me, well, I'm turning 30 next year, so I feel that pressure, or I've just turned 30, or some of them were even saying I'm turning 40. It was that big milestone.
Hmm.
And I myself I was around 30 at the time that I was going through this. And I just thought, wow, so many women, specifically women actually, feel this pressure. And that's when Turning 30 Coach was born from. And since then, I've worked with hundreds of women who feel left behind, hundreds of women who see turning 30 as a signpost. And, even though I call it turning 30, I've worked with women who are as young as 24 who feel those pressures, and also well into their 40s and 50s who also feel it. So it's definitely relevant for everyone. So if you're listening and thinking, oh, well, I'm not 30, this isn't relevant to me, I think the message of doing things differently and feeling left behind is very relevant for everyone.
Oh, I think it's so relevant. I think it's something so to any decade where comparison is so huge, where you're looking at what other people are doing. I love that you mentioned this push pull for you of like this external message might be pushing you to do one thing. And I know from looking at, everything that you have so openly shared that you wanted to be, I think, a therapist, but went to be a lawyer because sameness in your 20s was a thing. And I so resonated. There was somewhere where you wrote about being on the tube in a suit and going to the office. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my first job out of college was in finance in a cubicle, and same kind of feel. I read that. I was like, oh my gosh, I remember that. And I would literally cry on my desk because I was like, something is not right. This was what I was supposed to want. This is what everybody is doing. And I'm so unhappy here. And at that point, I think I was 23, 24. It wasn't really the norm to go off the path. And I remember thinking, I'm leaving finance, and all my friends being like, I think a little bit envious, but also like, what are you doing? This is the path. This is not. So that started and that's why I resonate with you and your story. It's like that started my journey too in my 20s, not just my 30s, of this exploration of like, well, what do I really want? And I think to your point, that message is important in any decade. Like, how do we pause and get clear internally? Like, what do we want? Not what we're told to want. And I think that to reconcile that sometimes, that external message with our own desires can be tough if you don't do the work. And that's why I think it's so incredible that you do this work and help women navigate that.
Totally agree with you.
So you said you've worked with hundreds of women. So I'm so curious, it sounds like you started as a career coach, but then you're getting all this messaging about, I'm supposed to hit this milestone. I'm supposed to be here. How do you help women shift out of that? How do you help them? Is it narrative work? Is it visualization? Like, how do you help women embrace their journey and sort of accept where they're at? And really, one thing I love too, there's so much that I love, so I'm like rambling, but one thing I work on with my clients is moving out of waiting. And I have a lot of clients that are waiting to buy the house, waiting to travel. And I think one example that you had given was this idea of the honeymoon, like the big trip, waiting to do this big trip. And it's like, no, go do the trip. So how do you work with clients to sort of move maybe out of the waiting to like living your life now?
I think a lot of the work that I do with clients, and I do want to say that the one-on-one coaching that I do, which is like the primary work I've been doing over the years, but I do have other group coaching programs and courses now. But the kind of the original work that I do is very tailored to each individual. So it would really depend. Obviously, there are some women who feel like they're waiting. There are some women who feel like they have got all the things and they actually don't really know if that's what they want, which is almost like another category that
Mm,
of clients that I work with. But I think a lot of it is about acceptance. So really that acceptance of being where they are. Because I think a lot of people who are in this position, let's just give an example, 32, 33-year-old woman, just gone through a big breakup, uh, feeling as though she's not that happy in her career and just feels left behind. All of her friends around her have started to settle down, get married, maybe some are having babies already. And she just feels lost and she feels frustrated and angry almost at why is this not worked out for me and why is it worked out for everyone else. And when you're in that position and you reach out for help, whether it be a therapist, whether it be a coach, often what you want to do is run towards the new timelines or the new milestones. So you're like, okay, I understand I need help and I've reached out to someone, and now what I really really want to do is just go and get all those things. If that's what they want, then they want to go and, find that relationship or find that new job, which is amazing. But I always really encourage clients to kind of stop, and before we even go ahead and do that work, and I use the analogy of building a house, like we
mm,
want to go and build a really strong house, we need to make sure that the foundations are very very strong. And in order to make sure those foundations are strong, we need to kind of go inside and have a look and really review and evaluate and see, is there anger? Is there resentment? Are there emotions there that are going to stop you from building a really strong house, which is this next version of you that you're going towards? And I think a lot of us who find ourselves in that position aren't accepting of it. We kind of are frustrated and we don't understand why this is our story. We can't own that story. So I love helping clients to own where they are, to see that their path is their own unique path, to see that even though life maybe hasn't turned out exactly as they wanted it to, that it is their own unique journey. And for some reason that we probably won't know yet, it's leading us to the right place. So that's one really important thing of what I do. And I think the other thing is really getting to know yourself on a really deep level and to understand what you want. Because when you're turning 30, I'm sure that you see this with clients, the noise of what society says you should want and what you're supposed to want is very, very, very loud. And of course, I have many clients who want all those things and it just hasn't happened for them. But I also have a lot of clients who don't even know if they want that. Society is telling them you must move to the suburbs and, get married. And sometimes it's like, actually, no, I want to travel. I'm not finished yet. I'm not ready to settle down. I'm not ready for kids. So a lot of the work that we do is what I call building an aligned life, like really getting
mm.
to know what is alignment for you. And we do that by doing lots of values work. So what's important to you? What are the things that you're looking for? Is it security and stability and a safe home? Are you in the nesting phase of your life? Or are you looking for adventure? Are you looking for travel? Are you looking for fun? And I think that's what a lot of people don't do when they go on these journeys, because they're so caught up on what society says they can do. And it's a worry because people end up kind of chasing a path that isn't actually the one that they want in those cases.
Oh, yeah, you just said so many incredible things there, and I think it's this ability to have patience, and that can be really impatience and ability to slow down to get clear and get clarity on what do I really want instead of what's being told to me that I want. And I think that starts very very young, that societal, idea, timeline, milestones. It gets sort of programmed into us until, and not stopping to think about, like, is that actually what I want? And then when you're confronted with time, especially when you get in your 30s, it does feel like this race. I have to race to the next thing. I don't have time to slow down and think about what I really want. I have to figure out how to find the partner, or I have to figure out, how to meet somebody and have a baby. So I think, slowing down, being able to slow down to do that work, to think about values and to think about what actually aligns and build that foundation is, I think, an important step is letting go of that time and that pressure and that narrative. It has to happen now. And I think when you can do that, and I know for myself in my journey, it opened up so much more for me when I could accept and embrace and really be grateful for where I was. I met my partner at 34, and literally a month before I met him, I said, "I'm happy. This is great. Maybe I'm meant to be a mother, maybe I'm not, maybe I'm meant to partner, maybe I'm not, but whatever my path, wherever my path takes me, I'm going to be happy." And being in that place opened up so much more for me, and that gratitude. And I think from a very different place, I couldn't see all the good things that I had, or all the things I really wanted to continue to
Mhm.
enjoy and embrace.
Yeah. I love that that's your story. And I want to say something that, and I want to share something about my story as well, meeting my partner, that I used to hear it a lot. What you just said, when I was dating, I was single from the age of 33 to 35, and I really did want to start a relationship. And I used to hear this a lot, like you just have to like let go and accept being happy where you are. And even though I heard it and I tried to practice it, like I kind of knew it in theory, but or like deep down, I wasn't happy, or I had got to the point of being stressed about not meeting someone, and the time was ticking, and the birthdays were looming, and all those things. And it's funny because it's the Jewish New Year tomorrow, and I'm Jewish, and I'm part of this. It's like an email list where you basically send your wishes, like you send like a summary of your year, and it asks you like a few questions about your year, and then they hide it in a vault and they send it to you at the
Oh,
next New Year.
cool.
And I know, and exactly this time last year, in a few days, I met my partner. It's our year anniversary. And I was so intrigued to read it because I wanted to read what I put. I've done this every single year for the past eight
I
years,
love
and
that.
every single one, you're only allowed to read it during the next 10 days. So it's quite fun because then you don't get access to it. And I every single year have been really like manifesting love, or manifesting. When I was with my ex, I was manifesting that we would move to those next steps. Or then when I was single, I was writing it, and I read it yesterday. It came through, and the last thing it said was like, "What do you wish for yourself for the next year?" And I'd written on it, "Every year I wish for love, and every year I don't feel like I've got it. But this year I wish to love myself more, and I let go of the need or the want for someone else because I'm just really happy with where I am." And I met my partner like literally the week later,
Oh my
and I just read
gosh.
it and I was like, because you have to do the work to get to the point that you just said that you got to when you met your partner. But I wanted to skip it. Lots of people want to skip those steps. They're just like, oh, I want to go ahead. And for me, it was a lot of hard work. It was also a lot of rejection and a lot of therapy and coaching and
Yeah.
healing and all of those things. But I really think it's true. There has to be a gratitude for where you are, and there has to be some. It might not be 100% acceptance, but some level of I'm going to be okay whether I'm with someone or not, and this is my path. And I almost like I think I'd even written, if I meet someone at 35 or 40, it doesn't really matter to me, like as long as it's the right person. And it was like the first time I've been practicing those thoughts. So it's just nice because
Oh
that
my
it
gosh.
happened
It's so,
literally
yeah.
last night.
Wow. Yeah, I have so similar experience, and this idea, I think, to really believing it. My work with clients a lot is trying to connect the logic with the emotions. Like I hear what you're saying, and I had so many people say, "You're going to meet somebody when you least expect it. You're going to meet someone," and I'm like, "Fine," but that was just so annoying to me. Like I
It's
heard
annoying.
it and
It's
I
annoying.
couldn't believe it, and I really truly remember believing what I said to myself. Like I will be okay. Like I will always choose happiness. And like Rob walked in a month later. I'm like, God, couldn't I like live in that space a little bit longer? Like it just happened so quickly. But I think it's, yeah, being really grounded emotionally in the belief that thing is, that belief is it's true. It's true. And you can
Mhm.
really embody that. That's so
Yeah.
interesting that's your, but it just validates that, right? That when we can hold those narratives, so much shifts.
Yeah, and I also really think for me, like an added part of the jigsaw puzzle, which I know is relevant to what you talk about with your listeners, is that it was also the week after I froze my eggs. So it was, I had the egg retrieval like a year ago this week. And I already actually knew my partner before, like we've been friends for quite a while, but there was something about freezing my eggs that just opened me up and put me in that position where I was able to be like, okay, I'm not rushed anymore. I'm not feeling that pressure. I'm happy. I took control and owned where I was. And then after that, it definitely felt more ready and open. for
That's
something.
interesting about, well, I have a lot of questions about your egg freezing journey in particular, but it's so
Mhm.
interesting to hear that you knew your partner before. So this, it's almost like this person was in front of you, but you couldn't see them. And similar experience with meeting my partner before I kind of got to where I got, I never would have saw him. I would have met him, like he would have been in my orbit, but I wouldn't have seen him as a partner. So it's so interesting to
Mhm.
hear for you too, that you had already known your partner.
Yeah, it was exactly the same thing, and I think it was connected to the egg freezing, and it was connected to the me finally letting go of the need for something to happen, because I think I was holding on to this concept of someone was going to walk into my life and like sweep me off my feet, and it would be like instant and lust, and it would be almost like, oh, that would be worth the wait. Like that's almost like the instant butterflies is what I was imagining and holding out for. And because of that, I had this great person in my life that we weren't best friends or anything. We were friends and we used to work together. We knew each other for a while. And we had a few false starts with dating and nothing ever really came of it for like the year and a half before we actually started dating. And I got into a headspace of not rushing. And then this person was in front of me saying, actually, I want to give this a go. And past Emma was like, I can't, because can't give something a go. If I've not already got butterflies and I don't already know for sure that I'm going to want to be with you, then I can't waste any time, because I can't waste these next few months of my life while I'm, in the lead up to my 36th birthday. But I wasn't in that space anymore. I was the new Emma, post egg freezing, post feeling this really deep acceptance of where I was like, I'm not in a rush. And actually, this person's really great. Let's give it a try. And then we've been together ever since. And it was just definitely a huge mindset shift that had to get me to that point.
Yeah, I think you make such a great point. It's a lot of the narratives that come up with my clients too in terms of dating, and I know you work with your clients a lot on dating too,
Mhm.
is waiting for the butterfly and the sparks. And if it's not there on the first date, they're like, it's not a connection. I'm like, whoa, 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 hold on. It does. There's some value to like a slow burn, but they're very quick to move on if that feeling isn't there, and
Mm.
they're leaning on that feeling to guide them in terms of connection and compatibility.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. And I think that the older that you get when you meet someone, and it's funny actually, because when I was 34, 35 and single, I was like, I'm so old and single. But now I've met someone, I'm like, no, like it's not old to me. And maybe you feel that way now in your 40s. You're like, look back and you're like, 34 was young to meet
Oh, I
someone. But
know.
at
Yes. Yes. Well,
at the
you
time,
were
you
on
think,
another podcast, which I thought was so great. And then you just posted something recently about what I wish I didn't do. I love that post. I thought that post was so
Mhm.
great. Um, but yeah, one, there's a real value in meeting somebody. And I know you've talked about this too, meeting somebody later. I think you're just more self-aware. When you can get to that point of clarity, you're more self-aware, you're more clear on what you value and what type of partnership you want. Um, but yeah, I think that I do, there are parts of being single that I do miss, and being at 34 in a rush, I wasn't as
Yeah,
grateful of like single is kind of great. Like, and I wish there were
I
more
know.
moments that I valued what it meant to be single and that autonomy and that ability to kind of come and go and be spontaneous. And not that you can't do those things now in a relationship, but it's different.
It's different. And I think it's so funny how, if we can practice that mindset already when we're single, of being like, but when I meet someone, it won't feel late. It will just feel like the right time, which is what it does actually feel like in the end. Then you open yourself up to a whole different experience being single and dating. And for me, yeah, I think, to go back to the point we were speaking about the butterflies thing, is that I really think that I see it with a lot of clients and friends, and also I experienced it, that when you get past a certain age and you haven't met someone and you're like, I'm not going to settle for anything less. And I really had that in my head. It was like, no, I've been through all of this heartbreak. I've had 4 huge relationships in my life and none of them have worked out. And I was like, almost there in others with other partners. And the next person that comes along, like, it's going to be butterflies. It's going to be the big thing. And actually, it is the big thing with my partner now, and I'm so lucky and grateful to have it. But it wasn't instant. It was a friendship, and actually, building a really solid relationship on a friendship is amazing, and I do recommend it to everyone, like, to really value friendship as part of partnership. But yeah, I do think a lot of people think, well, I've waited this long, I'll keep waiting until that thing comes along.
Yeah. Yeah. And, same. It was not butterflies with my partner either. In fact, when I met him, he was completely annoying. It's a funny story. But I didn't, yeah, I was just sort of in myself and grounded. And I didn't, not that I didn't care, but I was kind of like, okay, like it wasn't instant, it wasn't butterfly. So I think there's to continue to like reinforce this idea that it doesn't have to be that.
Yeah.
And I think what you said too, like the meeting the milestones from a place and the work that you do and the work that you do with your clients, it's when you meet those milestones, there's more probability for happiness, right? Because you'll meet those milestones with this acceptance and this gratitude. I think I
Mhm.
know, and I've worked with women, like they meet the milestone of the partner or the relationship, and it's like, wait, I'm still not that happy. So I think there's so much
Mhm.
value too in doing the type of work that you do to when you meet those milestones, it's really joyful and it's really fulfilling. I think again that like when you have that foundation.
Yeah. And to go back to the analogy of the foundation with the house, this is why it's so important, because I always say if you build a house on a rocky foundation built with anger and frustration and resentment about where you are, then that building, you might be able to build one floor, but two floors, three floors, like a gust of wind is going to come and the foundation is not going to be strong enough to hold the house up, and the house is going to blow down. And that gust of wind could be anything adverse. It can be, an argument with your partner. It could be some criticism or some feedback, or a twist in the tail. And it's like, no, like what's really important isn't rushing towards the milestone, it's building the strongest possible foundation that you can so that the house is going to stay up. And it might take longer, and I love what you said before about just slowing down and being patient, because it might take longer than you imagine, and it might mean having a break from dating, or it might mean, taking a bit longer time to get to know yourself before you meet your future partner. But the consequence of it, the benefits that you'll reap from doing that are just so much greater than rushing towards anything.
Yeah. And I love this idea of the foundation because there are always twists and turns and the path or timeline or whatever unexpected things happen. And I think from a place of that, having that strong foundation, you can look at something like that and say, okay, what is this? What is the value of this? Like, what is this trying to teach me? What is this trying to show me, instead of feeling anger, resentment, frustration? So I
Yeah.
really love that concept. I do want
Thank
to switch gears a little bit and talk about your egg freezing journey. And you had said
you.
earlier, you're advocate. It sounds like in the last year you said I've been advocating for it even more. So I want to hear about your journey and the work you do maybe in that space with your clients and your advocacy.
Yeah. So for me, egg freezing kind of it came into the picture when I was just 30. I was turning 33. I went through this big breakup. I'd been with my partner for 4 years. It was presumed this was the person that we were going to do those next steps with. It was really on my mind. And then we broke up, and I started dating again. And when I started dating, I realized quite soon after that I was kind of like baby daddy hunting. I was really husband hunting and thinking, going out and being like, I just need to find that right person. And I felt rushed. But the truth was, I'd just come out of this big 4 year breakup. It was the first time I'd been alone in my 30s. And I needed time to heal. And I had so many other things I wanted to do. And I quickly realized after X amount of dates that this isn't working. And I did the work on myself and understood that I felt that time pressure because of my fertility. So I actually had a client at the time who was going through a few rounds of egg freezing herself, and I've been supporting her through her journey with it. And she really like talked a lot about her journey. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go and get the fertility MOT, which is just, the hormonal checks and um the preliminary test to see, like, do I have something to worry about at the age of 33, or is everything okay?
Hmm.
And so I went to do those tests, and actually, fortunately, everything came back great. And I was really, really happy with, the results. And I know that's not the same for everybody, but fortunately, that was the case for me. And I spoke to the doctor, and they were just very clear, like, okay, like they really push it, because let's be honest, freezing your eggs is a money making private, in most countries, private
Yeah.
process. So they were like, we definitely think you should do it, but you're not in a rush to do it right this minute. And so I packed my bags and went off to Costa Rica for 4 months and did my solo
Ooh.
traveling and had the most incredible time. This is a few years ago now. And I put it to the side, and I just was feeling good about it. And then as I turned 35, so it's almost like a year and a half later, I was still in the same position of being single, and I think I just went through another, dating rejection, and I just thought, okay, I'm ready now. Like I hadn't really been ready before. I redid the
Mm.
fertility MOT to see, and actually, funnily enough, my fertility was better than the year and a
Oh,
half before, which I thought was
great.
funny. But actually, I asked the doctor why that was, and he said, firstly, we're not robots. Like just because your fertility is supposed to decrease year on year doesn't mean that it will, which I thought was really interesting because
That's
so many
very
women.
interesting because I think that is not a message that is shared or well known. I think it's the quite opposite. It's this fear, and
Mhm.
35 for a lot of women is that panic age, and I think it is this understanding, and that speaks to there's a lot of lack of information and knowledge that we have, but there's this understanding that like it's a stark decline. I remember I froze at 37, and they showed me this chart, and I was like crashing and burning at 37.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what your story is, and maybe like you can share with me so I can understand. But I'm really strongly advocate for this going against this fertility cliff that we've been fed. It really bothers me. And I speak out a lot about it. And actually for me, I didn't, from the age of 33 and a half until 35, my fertility slightly went up. And I want to say that when I say went up, it means the hormone levels on the fertility MOT showed that I was like, the hormones were better than they were before. And I think there was a few different things at play. I think firstly, stress. I was less stressed. I definitely was in a better place in my life. I definitely felt more sure of who I was. And I think food, because during this
Mm-mm.
time, had started to be more aware of diet. And actually, I interviewed someone on the podcast she's an amazing nutritionist who helps women increase their egg quality and their fertility via diet. And I'd kind of been following her, I did a short course with her, a group program, and had been more aware of eating like more fertility inducing food. And yeah, it just meant that I wasn't in this like drastic, horrible place of what we all imagine that when we wake up on our 35th birthday, we are going to, be barren. So it was a nice thing to see. And I really advocate for it now because I think society and the messages that we get in Western medicine is very set on making women feel like 35, and actually now 37 is I think the age that they also
Yeah,
focus on a lot.
it creates such panic and fear, and I think and all your messaging in your work, and which I resonate totally, is everyone's journey is unique in their own right, and so it's to put one number on it and say it has to be by this number or this is what happens at this number. Like everybody's body is different, everyone's biology is
100%.
different, and everybody's readiness is different. That's a big thing we talk
Yeah.
about on here because it's a taxing
Mhm.
journey. So being
Yeah.
emotionally ready, being physically ready, being financially ready, it's unique to everybody. So I'm with you. I think that is such horrible, harmful messaging that there's this like cliff at 35 or now 37.
Yeah. And I put out some posts about it that was basically saying like because it's the truth that the data that the fertility cliff is based on is literally outdated data from like French farmers in the like early 19th century that is just not relevant to the modern woman life in 2023. And I received a lot of backlash from it, people saying, you shouldn't be promoting this message because it is true that women's fertility declines. And I was like, I think the people who were kind of coming back to me and arguing back, I was like, you're missing the point. Nowhere along this am I saying that women's fertility doesn't decline. It's a known fact. From the minute that we're born with millions of eggs until we reach menopause in our like 40, late 40s, 50s, we have decreasing egg quality and quantity, and no one is denying that. And I would not, firstly, I'm not a doctor, so I wouldn't even have the ability to deny that. But as someone who's done lots of research in this area, I will never try to say to someone, oh, you're fine, don't worry, like everything's going to be okay. But I think there's a difference between knowing that and then also like this impending sense of doom that we're fed, that at a certain age we won't have any options anymore. And I know it's not accessible for everyone in terms of like price and accessibility, but we have many different options these days that we can talk about in terms of fertility. So even if you are in your early 40s and you still haven't had a baby yet and you want to, like, there are options for you. And
Yes,
I think that
yes.
it's just something to speak out loud about. And that's why I became quite passionate about it in the past year, because myself as going that kind of the fertility cliff happened to me, and moving into the latter part of my 30s, I did have that panic, and I don't think that we need to have it. I think the panic creates an adverse effect of fertility because it makes you more stressed. It makes you more panicked.
Yes. Well, I think that's why your work is so incredibly amazing, because it's giving more voice to paths that look different. It's normalizing, different timelines. It's sort of debating the societal pressure of things should happen at certain times. And I think it's so helpful for women. It was so helpful for me to come across your content on Instagram. I know it'll be so helpful for other women to continue to hear your voice and hear your voice here. So I just want to thank you so much for being here. And thank you, honestly, so much for your work and your vulnerability in your work, because I think women can, I connected with you just through Instagram, and I hope to continue to have, more conversations and relationship. But I think there's a real power in sharing your own story that makes it a safe space for other women to say, okay, this is my journey. This is my story. And, this is why I started this podcast too. And as a therapist, there's some hesitation because, I have clients that will listen and watch, but I was like, this is way too important to not talk about. And hopefully, it's helping women feel better. I know listening to you and seeing your posts, even though I'm not in my 30s, your message resonates well beyond that. So I just want to thank you for all the work that you're doing, and especially for being here today and sharing with us.
Of course. Thank you so much. And yeah, I also love the work that you're doing. And I think that's my biggest mission with turning 30 is to bring women together who feel that way. Because I think a lot of women go through this, what we've both have been through in our 30s and beyond, and talking about, all of these things. And it feels lonely, and it can feel very stressful when you're going through something and you don't know that other people are going through it, because your friends or your colleagues are in different stage of life to you. So my biggest mission, and I'm actually just about to open a membership for women who resonate with my message, because I want to make this kind of work as accessible as possible. And yes, it's to bring together people so that they know and they can connect with others, so they understand that you're not alone in this, and everyone in some way is going through a turning 30 journey.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, cultivating a community. Well, we'll be sharing all of that. Like when we have more, send me all the information about that so we can share with our audience, because I think, just community and connection and normalizing is so important. Well, Emma, thank you again for your time, and being here is so amazing to connect with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being along this journey with us and joining us for 2 seasons of Quiet the Clock. As we head into the holiday season, we are going to take a little bit of a break to regroup, revamp, and come back even stronger for season 3 to bring back and share more episodes of amazing journeys of dating experts, all things that we hope you are finding helpful. Our team at Quiet the Clock thinks that this is a very good time to talk about burnout and taking a break and stepping back, because the holidays can be really chaotic and overwhelming and wonderful, but also very stressful. So we hope that you get a break. We will be taking a break for a few weeks. And in that break, like I said, we're going to be taking time to come back even better for season 3. So stay tuned for future episodes. And thank you so much for joining us for the first 2 seasons. It's been an incredible, incredible journey. We are so grateful to be able to do this work and to share these stories with you. And we hope you are finding it helpful. So take a break, rest, regroup, and enjoy your holiday season, whatever that looks like. If you're ready to take charge of your relationship journey, visit quiettheclock.com today to download your free copy of Balancing the Biological Clock, Expert Advice on Handling an Unready Partner. This is a guide I created for those navigating the complex terrain of differing timelines with your partner. It will provide you with exclusive insights on understanding your relationship by sparking meaningful conversations and encouraging you to take unconventional action in the face of life's most important decisions. Again, head over to quiettheclock.com now and claim your free copy of Balancing the Biological Clock, Expert Advice on Handling an Unready Partner.